Good morning. I just want to share with you this morning a story and a little bit of work that's been done around the challenges of working around live services and excavations. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of how big the task is, if you like, is that Fletcher's one of 5 delivery teams within the Skirt Alliance, and in any given month we have around about 25 to 30 contractors working for us, and that's replicated across the other 4 delivery teams. So you can do the math on that. It's not too early in the morning to start calculating a few figures, I'm sure. We put approximately 4 to 5 kilometres of pipe in the ground a month, and during that time we work beside we calculate about 2,500 services. So that's a few. So we're going to get it wrong. And the thing is, when we get it wrong, it's about actually starting to understand the mechanisms that's caused the failure, and understanding what we can do differently. So since we've started in the Skirt Alliance, we've had about 38 service strikes, and I came onto the scene about 18 months ago to work for the Fletcher crew. And I think the rough estimate of actual money spent on repairs is around about $2 million. So we've got a fairly serious problem out there in terms of hitting things. So that adds up right across all the teams of about 11 and a bit service strikes per month on average. Okay, so and the other thing is that we've actually hit 5 gas mains. Now that makes me twitch a little bit when we start hitting gas mains, and we also start hitting live electrical services. So let's start on where it on the story here. So we used the process to investigate called ICAM. Is anybody familiar with ICAM? A few people. So what it is, it's called Incident Causation Analysis Method. Okay. The thing that I really like about ICAM is it's not actually about finding fault. It's not actually about blaming people. It's about starting to understand what we've done as an organisation or as a business to set up the workplace for people to make mistakes, and these lead to their defences either failing or being absent, which leads onto the accident. And that's the Swiss cheese model, if you like, which is what ICAM's modelled on, the work that James Reason did. And I'll take it another step further today with another tool that you may be able to use to help you understand some of the things that go on. Okay, so let's just have a little bit of a look at the summary. So this is over a year old now, this investigation, but we're still learning from it. How cool is that? And some of the points in this investigation are still relevant to the incidents that we're still having. Okay, so we hit we damaged a fibre optic cable, and it wasn't something that we wanted to do, but we need to learn from that. So let's start unravelling or peeling back the skins of the onion to have a little bit of a look to see where things went actually wrong. Okay, so we had an issue around the crew understanding and reading drawings. How many people have had a look at some of the drawings that come out of the service provider, out of the asset owners? Easy to read, are they? Yeah. So we're on a bit of a hiding to nothing already, just trying to work out where the stuff is in the ground. So we need to work with what we've got. We'd also had the magic thing of GPR, which allows us to see into the ground, to have a look and try and find some services that were there. The interesting thing about this was that the radar operator didn't actually talk with the people that were going to be on site, so that was another challenge. So this is what was marked on the road. Pretty clear. Well, if you can read code. Okay, and then this is where it was in terms of where the actual service was, and where it was marked. Okay, so we started to pull it apart using the ICAM model and started to try and have a look and see what had actually happened. So the way that an ICAM works is you start gathering information under what we call PEPO. So it's people, it's equipment, it's environment, it's procedures, and it's organisational stuff. Now there are 5 pretty big areas once you start looking into an investigation. And then when you've got all that data gathered, these are the 4 areas that we actually start loading the data into. Okay, so the key areas really are around these absent or failed defences. So these are the things that could have or should have stopped the event from happening. And then we've got the people stuff. Okay, so if you want to blame somebody for the job, this is probably where you could concentrate. If you really want to get into it and make some changes to the way that we do business, this is the area where we work to make some changes in the organisational factors and the absent or failed defences. Now I say that these are the easy ones, and the organisational factors are the real ones that make us stretch. Okay, because this is the stuff that we don't really want to know about. So this is a bit of an overview of what happened. So why did it happen? Well, there's a little bit of a culture or a belief out there that it's just a telecom cable. Nobody got hurt. But that's not really good enough. Okay? We're also got our supervisors that are working supervisors. And that's another challenge. And I'd suggest that maybe some of you have that challenge as well. Not only are you expected to run the team and manage all the risks, and we've just seen some thanks to Tony's presentation, but you're also expected to get on the tools and do a bit and step up when somebody else isn't there. So you've got a fair bit on your shoulders, you supervisors. Okay, and down in here it's around the actual giving people information on how to disseminate or understand some of that information that's in those hard to read drawings. And we're still probably a little bit in here. We're still failing to implement some of the learnings that we have, because that's the thing about an incident, is it's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to do things differently. So these were some of the things that came up in the organisational factors, and this is about right for an ICAM. You normally find there's about 8 or 9 things that have gone wrong at the organisational level. This is just a bit of a summary of what the actual consequence was. It wasn't much, to be honest, but the potential was huge. Okay, and it's even, the potential consequence is far greater when we're talking about gas or electricity. Okay, so let's start looking at what actually went wrong. So we had a risk assessment process that wasn't robust. Okay, where we had a generic take on a JSCA. Now JSCAs should be done in the workplace by the crew that's going to do the work. However, in this case it was done in a different location by people who weren't really involved in the doing. So if there's one thing that you can do differently, get your JSCAs out into with the crews and get the crews to actually review them and ask some questions around it. There was a little bit of failing around the permit, and there was a bit of a failing around the location of where the actual services were. We had a few things that were absent. People make assumptions, okay? And I still see it out there where people are assuming things are where they're supposed to be. What do we know about assumptions or assuming? They don't usually ring true, do they? Okay, we had some training issues. Okay, we'd said that our supervisors should be trained to a certain level, and we hadn't ensured that they were. And we hadn't done any trial exercises around what, if we had an emergency, what would it look like? So then let's look at some of the people stuff, or the team or the individual actions. The digger driver had actually only pulled the cable, so it wasn't actually broken. And however, it shouldn't have got into that position where he did make that mistake or that slip. The supervisor, well, he was away doing something else. So how can you be a supervisor if you're not actually supervising? The operator operated his machine fast and aggressively, and the reason for that was that he had come from a different country where it was okay to dig through services and you just fixed them afterwards. So he was on dig and destroy method, and that's not his fault, but that's just where he came from. You don't know what you don't know. Sounds a bit harsh, I know, but that's the reality of it. Okay. Let's move into some of the things that happened in the workplace. As I said, the operator wasn't familiar with the expectations. This one here is an interesting one. If you do that many digs, you're bound to strike a service at some stage. Okay, I've sort of read out a few figures around how much digging we're doing. Is it acceptable though to actually hit anything? I don't think so. So we need to change that thinking, and we need to have people valuing the service for what the service is. We don't know what's on the other end of that service or what people are relying on that service to do for them. So we need to treat them with all the same amount of importance as if it was a gas main or a live electricity cable. Okay, so there's a bit of a lack of adherence. There was an expectation that GPR is accurate. There's a high reliance on GPR out there to find stuff in the ground. It's only a tool, yet we rely on it heavily. And this one here I've talked a little bit about already. It's a different attitude based on what you expect to find in the ground. So guys actually said to me, oh, we'll be really careful if we're working around a gas main. I actually say, blimmin' bullshit to that, because I've seen them hit 5 gas mains. So we don't actually take any more care if it's a gas main. We'd like to think we do, but we don't. So more things that were going on in the workplace. There's a bit of pressure. We have a very few GPR operators in the city, and they're busy. So they tend to come in, get the job done and move on to the next one. We accept that critical documents aren't complete. Okay, how often do you go on one of your sites and find that the paperwork's not complete? Is it really that important to do the paperwork? I'll let you answer that one yourselves. Think about it. What's it there for? What use is it actually providing for you? We hadn't provided the right training. We hadn't provided the right supervision. We had a mix of experienced and inexperienced workers. Now that's a real challenge as well, because the business and the industry is growing here in Christchurch with the rebuild, and that's going to be an ongoing challenge. We can't just go out and pluck experienced people. And then when we talk about experienced people, is it 20 years of experience, or is it 20 years of 1 year's experience? Think about that. Okay, and then the hard stuff started to come out. So we looked at what our organisational culture was around this particular thing, and it's about that we've got this acceptance that we're going to hit services. We've got this incompatible goals going on. Oh, it's important to get the job done. We'll just put safety off to the side. We've got away with it before. There's an expectation that the supervisor does more than supervise. And we're very, very poor at planning for something going wrong. Okay, how many people have done drills recently on their sites to work out how well your emergency procedures work? You don't know if you don't test them. We talked a little bit about, we'd looked at the actual training that we'd failed to provide for these people. We'd set these people up to fail. We hadn't been good in the way that we managed our GPR operators. We'd slip them in through the back door, because there's always little wee loops in organisations where you don't actually need to fully engage with the contractor if they're under a certain financial thing, and we just put them on a PO order number and she'll be right. So we don't robustly check what our contractors can and can't do. So we buy ourselves risk hand over fist. And our procedures weren't that flash. Okay, so and a little bit of but a couple more things there around procedures and also around our risk management. So this is pretty much what it all looks like when you start putting your iCam together and into, and I won't take you through it, I just wanted to give you an overview. You start pulling all these things apart and you end up with a pretty complex looking picture. I just want to share a little video with you.
Hey, have you seen his girlfriend?
Yeah, I have.
Busy, are we?
Yeah, watching you make a pig's ear of it.
Why don't you get off your horse and do it yourself then?
Oh, we'd rather watch a master at work. Now, Gary, I've got a dentist appointment next Wednesday, mate. Do you think I'll make it?
Don't know.
Fuck off.
Put him out of his misery, eh?
Come on. He-Man. Wait. Come on then. Fucking hit it.
Fucking hell! Oh, Jesus Christ! Put it out! Put it out! Oh, fuck!
Hello, there's been an accident. I don't know, there's two. One's burnt. He's burnt bad.
Nothing can prepare you for seeing a man, one of your mates, burst into flames. The screams, the fear, the smell. You can't begin to imagine it.
Thank me up.
And for what? Because of stupid mistakes.
Will he be all right?
Hospital on standby, please. ETA 15 minutes.
Of course, if we had our time over again, we'd do things differently. But you can't turn back the clock, can you? You get a bit complacent about working just a few feet from lethal current.
Got it!
25,000 volts overhead, 750 DC on the live rail, 33,000 in a buried line. Don't matter. That's what we do every day, innit?
Watch yourself.
Hello there, Gary. Any time today, mate?
We talked about it in the briefing, but none of us took it that seriously.
All right, lads, listen up a minute, please. Right, we're putting up 250 metres from this point here to the tracks over there.
Oh yeah, what time's what?
You just think, let's get in there and get on with it.
Be more successful than Danny's.
I should have said something.
OLE cables on the tracks
But I
to
didn't.
our side, and we've got buried services showing from here to here.
I bet a tenner. None of us are like that at home.
Come and get your food. Look. Honestly, Gary, it's going to be like Fort Knox by the time you finish.
Yeah.
Got to keep the little man safe, haven't we? Hey.
Oh, what's Daddy like? Is he keeping you safe?
The fact you can't see it or touch it makes it more dangerous, not less, doesn't it?
Yeah, hang on a sec, John. So it's just this one area to look out for here, yeah?
Oh, great. Should be done by lunchtime.
Walk in the park for you, Steve? Oh, sorry, mate, I've got to take this, yeah?
Oh, see you later.
See you, mate. Daddy.
Hey, bye. Oh.
Ooh. Bye-bye. See you later. See you. Goodbye.
We all had plenty of chances to do things differently. Plenty of chances to be safer.
Oi, JJ. Ask Danny about last night.
Oh, what happened? Went on a date.
Yeah, what was his name?
Oh, fuck! Yeah, try and get some in the Jenny, you pillock. Stink now.
Well, you stink anyway, so...
But like I said, we can't turn back time.
We have a 34-year-old male received a high initial electrical shock, 5% burn, kilo 9, ETA 45 minutes 7.
Right, lads, we can unload, but nobody is allowed in the work area until JJ has finished the scanning, right?
Danny was lucky.
We've changed the way we do things now. The team's got a different attitude. We look out for each other and no one's afraid to say if they're not happy about something. It shouldn't take an accident to make us change the way we do things. Think about it before it's too late.
Normally when you do an ICAM investigation, the ICAM team get together and they come up with corrective actions and they present them to the management, and then some things start to happen. With this investigation, I wanted to do a few things a little bit differently. And one of the things that I did was we put the investigation together, and then I got the senior management team together and said, this is where we've got to. And I took them on a bit of a journey through this presentation to this point and asked them what they were going to do to change the way that we're doing things in the field. Because it's around understanding what are these things here, using the hierarchy of control, and it's also about making sure that these things here are implemented. So let's have a look at what that looked like. As I'd said, these were all the things that we'd come across in our investigation process. So these are the organisational factors, and these were the failed defences that should have or could have stopped the event from happening. And these were the absent defences that weren't there, that should have been there. And then we needed to get to a point where we started to have some things that we could implement or change that actually meant something and could start interrupting this pathway. Because when you're looking from an investigation point of view, you're always looking back. And the challenge that will face us going forward is when we're looking at risk, is that we're actually trying to sit here and look this way. And that's a challenge. It's trying to look forward, to predict or to think about the things that may or could happen and how we're going to control them. And we won't always get it right. However, that's the challenge going forward. So that's what the question that I asked the senior management team. Are all service strikes preventable? What do you think the answer was? Yeah. But what? And then somebody said, but if it's only just a little telecom cable. So we had quite a good discussion, probably about 45 minutes at least, and we went backwards again and I kept asking the question: are all service strikes preventable? We came out with this little definition to work with. If a service is on a drawing and we know about it, it is preventable not to have a service strike causing damage, because occasionally we do come across a service that's in the ground that we don't know about. Okay, I'm not saying it's acceptable to hit it, but we're going to get the occasional time where we just don't know about it. We need to be reasonable about it. We need to actually acknowledge that. And then the other question was, what are the corrective actions you're going to implement? So these were the key learnings. We're not doing what we say we're going to do. We weren't following our processes, and we had supervisors appointed without training them. Our contractor system wasn't implemented effectively, and our risk management wasn't effectively implemented. So we started doing some things differently. We put our own little thing here where we go out and do our own investigation, and we rolled out our own GPR team. There was something else that what we wanted to do as well, I wanted to do, is do what we call a bow tie risk analysis. And the perfect time to do this is when you've just done an ICAM, because you've done a lot of work investigation. So you start off with the hazard, which is working in close proximity to services, and the top event, which is your service strike. And then you start analysing what are the threats and what are the controls that prevent those threats from occurring into your top event. And then the other side of it is you start looking at your controls post-event so that it doesn't escalate, and what are the consequences that you're trying to prevent to get to. So this is what it looked like simplistically. Whoops, I'll just go back one. And we started to build this bow tie. I also did it in conjunction with the other delivery teams. The safety leaders of the other delivery teams got together, and we used a lot of people involved in this process of getting the bow tie together. And the beauty about having a bow tie, which is this, you won't be able to read the detail on that, but when you do have a service strike, you can understand what was the threat that was realised and where were the controls that failed. And we're still seeing the majority around this threat here, which has got the biggest control line, is around failure to positively identify a service. And this is the area where we're still failing in this control. So what really? We've had, since we've done this investigation and worked through this, we've had, within our delivery team, we've had 5 periods of 27 days consecutive that are strike free. That's pretty huge. Our next goal is to get to 6 months, right across all our sites, without hitting a service. That's a big challenge. We'll get there. But we've got to keep challenging ourselves as well. We use our bow tie tool to investigate. And as it says there, nothing new is being discovered. Funnily that, isn't it? And the challenges around robust controls. So I suggest, you know, there's a safe, the Christchurch safety charter for the rebuild. Get into it, because it's about sharing information and sharing systems and sharing stuff. It's about understanding your critical risks. And the more that we get together like this, I think there's a fantastic opportunity to learn and share some information. So thank you.